Hello, everyone. My name is Alfonso Santaniello, and welcome to the Agency Life Podcast, the podcast for marketers by marketers. I sit down and talk to fellow marketers about their stories, their successes, the failures, ups, downs, and everything in between. Our industry is crazy, and so are our stories. Welcome to Agency Life. Welcome to Agency Life. My name is Alfonso Santaniello of the Creative Strategy Agency, and today I have the hilarious, I can't wait for you guys to listen to her, Meghan Rothschild of ChikMedia.
Hey, how you
Thank
doing?
you so much for coming on the show. You're actually our first episode.
Oh, I feel so special.
So welcome to the pilot of Agency Life.
Thank you.
Meghan, for those that may not know you,
Yeah.
few of them.
I was going to say there's like one, two. No, I'm just kidding.
Why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, a little bit about ChikMedia, and how you really got into the marketing industry.
Yeah, so that's a mouthful. I've been doing
My name, I know.
I've been doing this for over a decade. I won't date myself too much. I got my start really at Six Flags New England as the advertising and promotions manager. Went to school for journalism, but fell into that job and completely fell in love with the field. I absolutely loved everything about marketing. This was even before the days of social media, just to tell everyone how old I am. We weren't using social in a business capacity, and so things have just evolved so much. But did that for a few years, went on to hold a variety of other positions. I worked as the director of marketing and communications for a private school. I worked in nonprofit doing development and marketing, raising funds. And about little over 5 years ago, I decided I was going to launch ChikMedia, which is I like to call us a boutique firm. We're sort of small. We focus on small to medium-sized businesses with a big emphasis on female-run and female-owned organizations. So I decided to launch it, and it sort of has blossomed into something really amazing. So that's how I got to where I am today.
So in the many facets of what you do for your clients, what do you think is your favorite thing to do for a client? Like, what's for a lot of us in the agency world, we all have I want to say a plethora, but we have
Sure.
like a group of services that we offer. But what is your favorite thing to work on with a client?
So I think, with our clients, they tend to be more of the modest budget. I love it, come do all these amazing things for a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
But I think that actually is one of my favorite parts, the fact that we have to be super creative in our approach. So sort of stepping back, taking a look at what they've been doing, and then talking more about the strategy side and sort of fine-tuning and tweaking what it is that they have out there. So it's very rewarding for me because, when I talk to people and I say, oh, I see you're active on social, or I see you're doing this on your website, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Their eyes light up.
Yeah.
And it becomes this, I never even thought about that. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm here for. So I think that tends to be my favorite part, is working on the strategy and sort of the big picture thinking, as opposed to the daily nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah. So what do you think? So for those of you that are listening, Megan and I have this really great relationship when we are working and something's bothering us related to our clients, our team members, our whoever. We get each other and it's like, motherfucker. Like it's.
Are you available for a call?
Yeah.
It's always bad when I do that.
Yeah, it's like I need an ear. I need it before I rip someone's head off.
So true.
So anything that you can say, what is kind of like the big, what the fuck client story, why?
So I think there's two big what the fuck clients, sort of like, hello, what are you doing? I think the first thing is people don't understand how important marketing and PR is, right? So you start a business, you're absolutely in love with your product and your service, and then no one's using it because you're not fucking telling anyone to use it.
We're not in the day of build it and we're not there anymore.
I just said to someone yesterday, I said, it is no longer if you build it, they will come. That's not a thing anymore. If you build it and you don't tell anyone, no one's showing up.
You need to build it and shove it down their throat. That's what you need to do.
Right, exactly. So, we've had clients who are just like, I have this, really great service or this great product or whatever it is. Why is no one, using it? And I'm like, well, are you telling anyone it's there? And oftentimes the answer is, well, I have a website. It's like, well, great. How is anyone going to find that website? You have to do all of these steps to get people to drive traffic there. So I think between that and also the the timeline assumptions, right?
Oh my God.
So we have clients who will hire us to do, like manage their entire brand or put together their entire branding guidelines. And like 2 days later, they're like, what's the status? And I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
The status is 4 to 6 weeks, you know, like quality work takes time and also money. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges having this firm full time.
I think, I definitely see that it's a learning curve for a lot of the businesses that are first time outsourcing.
Yeah.
And whether they've never had anyone internally doing it, but it's the first time they've outsourced, I don't think they understand that it's an agency with multiple clients and multiple deadlines.
Absolutely.
And we're not, I would love to say like I would love to spend 24/7 on your project and for pennies. Like, oh sure.
Right. Yeah. No big deal.
No big deal.
$3 an hour.
But that ain't gonna pay the bills. That's
Right.
not gonna pay for this podcast equipment.
Yeah.
But I definitely see where it's definitely a learning curve for the businesses that never had anyone internally doing it professionally per se.
Yeah.
And first time outsourcing, there was always a little bit of hiccup, a little bit of like not hand holding, but like just making sure the expectations are there. Is like, listen, like I'll answer emails within a day. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
But when you're looking for like, oh, I need to get this up like right away, I'm like, listen,
I have 20 of you.
Within social media, there's give and takes. Like there's a picture happening in the office and they need things like that. Perfect.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like, hey, we need to get this ad put together, I'm like, I'm already jammed up today with what I need to do. Like I would like to have lunch. Is that okay with you, client?
At some point, I need to go to the bathroom and eat.
Yeah.
Well, I get text messages at like 7:30 at night. Are you free for a call? I'm like, bitch, why do you think I started this freaking business? I do not have to be available after 6 o'clock at night. I get a lot of that. And I think what you're saying is so on point. So many people hire us and think, okay, you're my new marketing person. And I'm like, right, for X amount of hours per month, not readily available to you 24/7.
So what do you do when a client comes, you've been working with them for a few months, you enjoy working with them, but like little by little, they just keep sucking more time out of what was proposed in the contract. What do you do? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so that happens so often, right?
Yeah.
So I've learned to be explicitly clear, both in the contract and then in the email I send with the contract attached, about what it is they're hiring us to do. And I think, it's a hard thing because people want more, and marketing and social media and PR, they're all so intertwined that you can't have one thing without the other. So I get that sometimes there's going to be things outside of the scope of work that really I just need to sort of eat it and do it because it makes the best sense for the client. But if it's a pattern of behavior, I have definitely started to set boundaries and email the client or talk to the client or say, hey, we're going to have to renegotiate the terms of the contract, what you've hired us to do, if this is much more work or this is outside of the scope or we're blowing through our hours. I have that conversation all the time with people because the way that we structure our retainers is, we give you X amount of hours depending on what you're willing to pay, and we blow through them all the time. And I'll have to say, after 3 to 6 months of it, I'll say we need to sort of revisit this because these are the hours we've been putting in. So I think, most people are reasonable. And if you sit down and say, this is taking more than what we anticipated and we have to talk about it. And if they're not willing to pay more, then we say, okay, well, where can we cut,
And I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So when contract ends and we revisit, do we want to do another 6 months, another year, whatever.
Yep.
This one client who is my smallest client, but I love working with them. They are great people. It's a really small mom and pop shop. Not a headache of a client like I've had with a lot of mom and pop shops.
Lots of hand holding.
And they're great, but what their monthly retainer is and what I estimated the hourly work to be was different by the end of the 6 months. The first year was a first year contract. And we do everything. We have project management. We keep track of how much time we spend on everything because this perfect example was really valuable because we were spending on average 2 to 3 hours more a month than what we contracted. Okay. Not a huge amount, but that adds up. So I printed out the timesheet and where we were spending time, and I went to them and I had a very honest conversation. It was just our general monthly meeting, and said, it's been a year. I enjoyed it. This is where we are now. I can keep it at the budget, but I need to scale back time because I've exceeded the time
Right.
that was originally proposed.
Yeah.
Or if you can afford this X amount extra per month, we can keep going with what we're doing.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep it at the same budget, which is completely fine because it was like a challenge. I'm like, all right, how can I keep this going great with like a
Right.
smaller, in my mind, a smaller budget because I have to scale back.
Right.
And I mean, I did it. It was just,
It's
it
hard.
made
Sometimes
me
your
work.
quality
It made me think a
suffers.
little bit more outside the box of how to get work done. So we
Yeah.
found ways to get things done quicker, which
Yeah.
didn't eliminate the amount of posts that were going up
Right.
or the quality of them.
Yeah.
But we found workaround ways to save us time, which then ended up helping them out and without me losing the client.
Yeah, see, that's so key. It's so tricky. And to your point about, tracking hours and whatnot, like that's hard to do for me sometimes because I'm such a multitasker, which I know,
Yeah.
People have very mixed feelings and thoughts on multitasking. Some people are like, it doesn't work, but that tends to be the best way that I work because I'm sort of like in the middle of a press release, but also doing someone's social.
You have 15 tabs open in your mind. You're
Right.
doing a million things at once.
Yeah.
That's the agency life entrepreneur.
It so is. We have to wear so many hats, and so it's hard to track hours, but you can just sense, you can feel, you can look at it and say, wow, we're, especially because I have a team that is billing me for their hours as well,
Yeah.
and so you're like, okay, wow, we got to be careful about this, but you don't want to upset the client, you don't want to lose the client,
Yeah.
so it's a fine balance. But anyone who's reasonable and understands business will work with you, I feel like, and if they are not willing to, there's the door, buddy. Like
I actually have gotten much better ending a relationship with a client that I feel like is just not. And I recently had to do it. And the client, I was only working with them for 2 months, maybe, not even, like a month and a half, getting it done in 2 months.
Sometimes it's just not a good fit.
And I had a feeling, even before I signed them on, where it's like my gut was like, don't do it, don't do it. This is going to be a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Don't do it, don't do it. But I
And
was
you were like,
like,
I'm going to do it.
I came back from my 3-week trip to Italy. I was like, I'll just go get her. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, let's do it. Fast forward 6 weeks. I'm like, fuck, I should have listened
This
to
was
my
a
gut.
terrible idea.
Is there anything that happened with you where you should have listened to your gut and
my
you
God,
wish
yes.
you did?
Yes. Remember I just called you like 2 days ago about
Yeah.
this? So I had this client. They were a client many, many years ago, and they were a huge pain in the ass. Like, really difficult to work with, super stuffy, serious industry, just like very unwilling to do what we recommended. So in their type of industry, you can't just like put out a cool Facebook thing. You have to be networking and engaging with people because people have to trust these individuals to use their services. So they were total pain in the ass years ago. They came back to me and said, we're ready to, re-engage. Same type of conversation. I had a very open conversation right away. And I said, look, if you're going to continue to work with us, we need to address what was happening the last time. Like you weren't willing to go out there and be the face. You weren't willing to network. We have to rearrange. We have to redo all this. So they pretended to be super open to that. Come to find out they weren't. They wouldn't do anything that we told them to do. We had researched the industry ad nauseum and understood what was going to work for them, and they just refused to do it. So kind of realized, like, my whole team was like, I hate working with this client. I'm like, I know, but I'm not going to get rid of them. Like, we're just going to stay the course. So they finally call me. They give me some like bullshit. Oh, we gotta, we had something happen. They like, we need the extra money. I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. So we end out the contract. They take 3 months to pay their last invoice. They were 3 months overdue. So I'm like, okay, obnoxious number one. Then I go on their Facebook page. They stole all of our graphic design and were recreating the graphics that we had made for them, like in their own sort of shitty software, because it didn't look good, but
So it was
looked
in Paint.
right. Yeah, basically it was like a paint file. So I'm like, okay, .bmp. So I'm like, I wait until they pay because I'm like, I just want them to pay. I email them and I'm like, hey, I noticed that this is happening. Like, I'm not, there's no further action needed because I'm not gonna be crazy. But I was like, just like FYI, like, this is kind of unethical and this isn't really best practice. They called me like 4 times in a row. They start like emailing me, please call me. I'm like, no, I already said like no further action. They end up sending this email that's like, well, we called our lawyer and they say that we didn't infringe on the contract. I'm like, I didn't say that you breached the contract. I just said you were a dick. Like, I just wanted you to know you were a dick. So it ended up ending in a way that was just like so unnecessary. And I'm like, well, if you felt like you needed to call the lawyer, you knew you were doing something that needed legal counsel. Like, that to me should have been a red flag of like, we probably shouldn't do this. But it is what it is, and that's the world of the agency life.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times yeah.
You've been there. Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's just, I think that people really don't appreciate or value the work that we do, and everyone thinks they can market themselves, right? So like everyone's like, I know how to work Instagram, and you and I are
can make the posts. Yeah,
you're like there's strategy and education behind that, and like years of experience, and that's why we're skilled in what we do. But I think that that's frustrating, is just like people so undervalue what we do.
Perfect segue into the whole value and when you're putting the quote together, and there's I look at it as there's two different values. There's the time value and there's monetary value. Sometimes you have to pick one or the other.
Right.
And there's other things, like there's passion projects that come in, so you're willing to do it for cheaper, or people you like that. I have some that I call them golden tickets. So if like I know they're a small client, but they're connected to a million other potential clients, I call them a golden ticket.
I like that.
Don't steal it, and everyone listening, it's my thing. Just kidding.
I think it's Willy Wonka's thing, actually.
I know. I'll call it the silver ticket then. But where do you see for example, like both of us locally around here, like we do a pretty good job promoting our personal brands as well as our businesses.
Yeah.
But we always get people like I get this question all the time, like where do you find the time? Like who's doing this? How do you I don't think people understand that even as the business, like you have to market the business in marketing, or else like you have to market the marketing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the most noticeable, recognizable things that I notice when I'm looking at other agencies, because we do have our local base, but then we have, Rhode Island and Cape Cod and Charlotte, North Carolina and Maine, so we have these other areas. So I'm constantly like not spying on other people, but I like to see what others are up to, and it always.
Oh yeah, I'm fucking spying.
It always blows
I like
my
the Big Brother
mind.
people. I want to know what they're doing.
Yeah, because best practices, or holy shit, don't do that. But it always blows my mind when firms or individuals don't have a solid presence on social, and they're not like digitally exposed when that's what they're selling, that's what they're in the field of doing for others. So to me, my personal brand is equally as important as the work that I'm doing for clients, because I need to look like I have my shit together, so that clients are like, she's got her shit together, I want to hire her to do this.
Exactly.
So it's not a matter of where do you find the time. It's you just have to make it. I traveled this week, and I was away, and I sat at the bar at 8:30 at night eating dinner with a glass of wine, writing my blog, because that's when I had to get it done.
I seriously treat my agency as a client in of itself.
Yes,
when it comes to like social and posts, like I develop the content a month at a time, like we do with our clients, and so it is like you said, it sucks because it's just extra time, but you have to do it.
You do.
And truthfully, a couple of years ago, I went to a meeting, and I think we went like a couple months without posting. This is when I had someone else internally managing the agency's pages.
Yeah.
And they weren't posting as frequently, and then they, no longer were with the agency.
Right.
So I went a couple months without an update. For me, it didn't seem like it was the end of the world, because my personal brand, I am frequently updating and always,
you are everywhere.
Perception, I'm really on the couch working. No, but I forgot where I was going with this.
You said you were. Someone had just left, and you hadn't updated the business page.
And I went to a meeting, and this pretty much we signed on this client, and at that first meeting, one of the people were, we weren't too sure about hiring you guys because we saw that you weren't updated in a couple months, and I go, really? And she's like, I figure we're gonna hire an agency, like we would like to. You practice what you preach. And I go, duly noted. We've had some changes, and I was very transparent. I wasn't like gonna try to BS of like, oh no, the scheduling didn't work.
Yeah.
I was just very transparent. Like we're going through some internal changes, and I decided to not make it a focus because there's stuff going on inside the business.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, okay. But
That right
The
there.
first time I heard that was the first time I heard that. And after that, I was like, all right, no, I don't care if it's 1 week. It's not.
Yeah.
That's not happening again.
Yeah, it's funny because I've never heard that. We've always, when we relaunched, so obviously the first 4 years that I had this business, for 4.5 years, we didn't even have an Instagram. Like it was very much on the side. It was something that I was doing as a pet project consulting. And the minute we went full time with it, I was like, all right, we got to have like really good Instagram presence. I got to get back on my Facebook. We got to do all of these things. And, we do some really simple things to make it look like we're like super skilled, in the world of social, which we are super skilled, but there's, like our rule is, I'll give you guys all the secret. For our Instagram on ChikMedia, every picture has to have something pink in it. That's it. That's all we do. It has to have either font pink, or it has to have a background in pink. It has to have, I need to be wearing pink, like whatever it is, something needs to be pink. And that's how we keep it on brand. And so people will be like, damn, your Instagram is like on point. It's so on brand. And I'm like, yep, all it is something pink, So to me, it has become, I really also enjoy it. Like, that's the thing. Like, I love doing it. And there's definitely moments where I'm like, crap, I haven't uploaded a story today, or I haven't done this or whatever. And I'm kind of like rolling my eyes. But I'd say 95% of the time, I just think it's fun.
So that brings in, like you say, like sometimes you forget that you have to post a story.
Yeah.
I mean, so you run the agency, you do travel a lot between all of your clients, like, and that, you're married. Like, how do you manage? I was gonna say work life, but how do you just manage life?
Yeah, it is with an army. Let me tell you. So I think the best thing that. This is so little and stupid, but the best thing my husband and I ever did was hire a pet sitter, because we also have a zoo at our house. We have 5 animals, 3 dogs, 2 cats. And so we hired someone to come over and sort of care for the animals a couple times a week when we're not in the home. I hired a marketing assistant at ChikMedia, which she has been the best investment I've ever made. She's on top of it, and she manages my schedule and my travel and all of that. And I think, that takes away from my salary, right? Because as a business owner, the minute you hire help, you have to take a cut, but it's so worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. And I've learned really quickly that in order to continue growing and advancing and doing well, you have to reinvest back into the company. And so when 100%. I did this, I said to my husband, I'm going to pay myself dirt for a while, because I want all of the money kind of funneling back in. And he was like, I'm in a position where I can do that because I'm married, and he's a very understanding man. So he was okay with it. But from like a life perspective, I'm aggressive about my boundaries and my schedule. I get a massage once a month. I make sure my nails are done. I do a lot of self-care.
I was just going to say, I think self-care is so important.
So important.
And not even you just own the business, but especially in our industry that has
You're
become,
available all the
it's
time.
24/7.
Yeah.
You need to make it 23/7 and make 1 hour about you.
Yes.
You
and
have to.
I'm
Mental,
so aggressive
physical,
about that.
whatever it may be.
I am so aggressive. It's funny that we're talking about this, because literally last week I had my team call. We have a team call every other week, and I was like, okay, does anyone need anything else from me? Because I'm going into my massage, right? So once a month I get a 90-minute massage. That's like my treat. And everyone was like, nope, good. I come out of that massage to 20 text messages. So the next morning, I'm like...
it's bad when it's the abbreviation of messages.
So I emailed my whole team, and I was like, look, ladies, I love all of you, and I love hearing from you, and I'm happy to chat about personal things, but outside of the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can text me about work all day long between those hours. Once 6 o'clock hits, do not text me. I had text messages the next morning starting at 6:30 a.m. And I was like, okay, we all need to set some boundaries.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty aggressively obnoxious about it, because if the minute I let it get out of control, it is 100%. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Right? It's either like balanced and I've got my boundaries and I've got my time, or it's a complete shit show and I have not a second to eat, like we were talking about. So you have to be really clear about it, and people will be understanding.
Yeah. So with all of work and personal, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you going besides coffee?
True.
Everyone's first answer is coffee.
Yeah, caffeine. I'm actually not a big caffeine drinker, believe it or not. It gives me straight anxiety when I drink too much caffeine. I can have a little bit, but anything big, I get shaky. So for me, what keeps me motivated? So I know this sounds cheesy and cliche, but I fucking love what I do. I love everything about marketing, social media, public relations, media, networking, public speaking. Like, this was completely what I was meant to do. And I went to college to be a marine biologist. That's what I started in. And I was so shitty at math that the college was like, you're probably not going to like make it through what you need to do because you're really bad at math. And I was like, okay. And so I went onto the website and I picked communications strictly because it was the only major that didn't require me to take another math class. And
Nice.
it was completely what the universe had planned for me.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, getting up every day and loving what I do is so different from, you know, when I wasn't reporting to myself and I didn't have my own job, it was miserable. Like, I just am not the kind of gal who can have a boss. Like, it just doesn't work
I've
for
learned
me.
that too.
You know? And so there's been years of my life that I've sort of been miserable because I don't want to report into work. And now everything is so different. I'm on my own time. I have an amazing team. I love what I do. Everything is pink, which is my favorite color. That's all I need in life.
So wait, before we end, we close out, how did you end up coming up with the name ChikMedia? I think I actually personally, selfishly, have always wanted to ask, and I don't think I've ever even known.
So this is sort of a heavy, deep story, so I'll give you the highlights. I, at one of my jobs, was being fiercely sexually harassed by both men and women. I was getting called a slut. I was told I was no good.
Oh, wow.
I was only in the position because I looked good in a skirt. Like, you name it, the shit was said to me. And so ChikMedia really it was born out of a very negative situation, and me realizing that not only did I need to get out of that environment, but I also wanted to constantly live every day being a woman who supported other women. And so the media part kind of made sense. It was actually, I did have a business partner years ago. She and I are still very close and good friends, but she and I sat down and said, okay, like, what are some fun names? And I don't even remember exactly how it came up, but I remember us saying ChikMedia, CHICK, and then being like, let's be different and remove that middle C. So now we're CHIK Media, which is a horrible bitch when we're giving people our email address.
I'm sure.
I have to respell it like 100 times. But yeah, we just sort of said, okay, this embodies what we do with the media aspect and the feminine aspect, but it's a little bit different. And that was how it was born.
Wow. Meghan, thank you so much. I feel like we can go on for another 2 hours.
Agreed.
But what is website, social? How can people find out more about you and ChikMedia?
Yeah, so ChikMedia.us. I'll go ahead and spell it.
No C.
CHIK, yeah, CHIK media.us. That's also where we are on Facebook and Instagram and also Twitter. And if anyone has questions, they can also email heygirl@chikmedia.us.
Oh, hey.
Hey, girl.
Thank you so much. Head to Agency Life Podcast for this episode and others. Thank you for tuning in to our very first launch. I am so excited, and hopefully you guys can hear us next time.